Hello everyone, straight from Brazil to the world, you are on the Boosted Man channel. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos.
Have you ever noticed how sometimes just one small gesture changes everything between you? A look that once carried admiration turns neutral. A touch that used to be spontaneous now feels like an obligation. And the worst part is, you feel it. You feel she sees you differently, but you can't understand why. That's the moment most men lose themselves. They try to explain, justify, prove their feelings, believing emotional transparency will restore what was lost. But here's the brutal truth. The more you try to prove your worth, the less valuable you become in her eyes. Psychology calls this the collapse of polarity. The moment a man abandons the internal structure that makes him magnetic and turns into someone who seeks validation. To the feminine unconscious, it's as if the anchor has been released. She doesn't feel anger. She feels misalignment. Carl Jung said that when a man loses contact with his inner axis, he's absorbed by the collective unconscious. He stops being the center and starts orbiting someone else's desire. That's exactly what happens when you try to be understood or accepted. You stop being presence and become a plea. Joe Dispenza teaches that every emotion is a frequency, and that the human energy field responds to what we emit, not what we say. When you speak trying to prove something, your energy reveals neediness. When you stay centered and silent, your energy reveals power. Respect isn't lost in a single day. It dies in micro-gestures. The moment you hesitate not to upset her. The instant you ask for permission to be yourself. The second you try to fix what wasn't broken, just to keep the connection alive. Here's the paradox. The man who fears losing a woman has already begun to lose her, because his energy stops being presence and becomes pursuit. And feminine respect is born from contrast, from the solidity of masculine grounding. Presence and neediness are opposite frequencies. She feels when a man is centered. She feels when he knows himself enough not to dissolve in the effort to be loved. Feminine respect is less about what you do, and more about what you don't allow to crumble inside you. And if something destroys that respect, it's handing her the emotional steering wheel, letting her reactions define your worth. Because respect isn't a prize she gives you. It's a mirror of what you hold within yourself. The invisible reflection of emotional weakness. There's a silent instant when everything changes, and most men miss it. It's the moment he stops being the center of his own axis and begins to emotionally bend before a woman. It's not a visible act of submission, it's subtle. A look seeking approval, a phrase meant to please, an explanation no one asked for. Emotional weakness doesn't appear in tears. It appears in justification. When a man explains himself too much, what he's really saying is, "Please don't reject me." The feminine unconscious translates it differently. He's lost his internal command. She doesn't think that, she feels it. Her body senses that something in his structure has collapsed. What once felt like presence now feels like instability. And from that point on, the energy between them shifts completely. She begins to test him, not out of cruelty but instinct. She wants to know if the firmness she once felt is still there. But when she notices he's constantly trying to make things work, keep the peace, or avoid conflict, something in her withdraws. Not because she wants to, but because her body no longer feels safe. The collapse of polarity happens when a man gives up the healthy tension that sustains feminine respect and dissolves in the need for approval. He believes he's being loving and empathetic, but what she feels is fragmentation. She doesn't lose respect because he has feelings. She loses respect because his feelings control him. Emotion, when it overpowers structure, kills sexual tension and admiration. The man becomes predictable, and predictability is the death of desire. Carl Jung said that the shadow of the nice guy is the impotent man. That impotence isn't physical, it's psychological. It's the state where a man believes he'll only be loved if he's perfect, understanding, and harmless. But the feminine unconscious doesn't seek perfection, it seeks presence. Presence is integrated imperfection, the ability to hold your discomfort without collapsing. She feels when a man is aligned with his center. He speaks less, but his gaze has weight. Words lose importance. Coherence is what speaks. When that coherence breaks, the energetic field breaks too. His tone shifts. His rhythm falters. and she feels the lack of grounding. That's the moment she unconsciously pulls away. Not because she wants to, but because her body craves stability, and he no longer provides it. Neuroscience shows that the female limbic system is highly sensitive to micro-expressions and emotional variations. When a man speaks in justification, her body detects the tension. She can't explain it, but something feels off, and that's how unconscious disrespect begins. He thinks he's being honest and open, but her body hears, "He needs me to validate him." And the feminine instinct doesn't want to validate. It wants to feel direction. Masculine energy is the invisible structure upon which the feminine relaxes. Without that structure, she feels exposed and disconnected. That's why the more you try to be understood, the less she wants to understand. What she wants isn't your words. It's to feel that you remain whole even when you're not accepted. True emotional strength isn't controlling her feelings. It's staying present with what she awakens in you. Emotional weakness isn't sensitivity. It's collapsing under your own emotion. And as long as you don't see that, you'll keep confusing surrender with love and keep losing women's respect without knowing why. A woman doesn't disconnect because you feel too much. She disconnects because you fall apart when you feel. And that disorganization to her feels like a lack of structure. When you learn to resist the urge to explain and instead hold your silence, something changes in the field. She senses that there's something in you that doesn't depend on her approval, and that's what makes her respect you again. The feminine instinct to test the masculine spine. Every woman, on some level, consciously or not, will test the emotional structure of the man she's with. These tests aren't games, they're archetypal mechanisms. It's the feminine unconscious, verifying whether the masculine energy before her is stable enough to hold her when chaos comes. And chaos always comes. It can appear as a provocation, a subtle criticism, or a loaded silence. She doesn't want you to prove something. She wants to feel something. She wants to feel that you don't crumble, but the insecure man sees it as an attack. He reacts, explains, defends. And in that exact moment, respect dissolves. The feminine instinct perceives fragility not in words, but in energy. When she notices you need her approval to feel okay, something ancient awakens inside her. Withdrawal. It's not rational, it's biological. Her mind searches for firmness, her body senses instability. That's why she provokes you. Not out of malice, but to feel if there's still depth behind your eyes. She challenges you to see if the man she admires is still there, or if he's disappeared into the fear of losing control. When you cave to pressure and try to fix everything, you become predictable. And predictability kills the polarity that sustains desire. Jung described this as the confrontation between animus and anima, the masculine and feminine principles within the psyche. The feminine needs to feel the masculine as reliable, not submissive. When a man bows, the feminine doesn't feel loved. She feels orphaned. That's why so many relationships die amid acts of kindness and understanding. Not because the man didn't give enough, but because he gave everything except his firmness. She wants to feel the weight of your presence, not the weight of your explanations. When she tests you, she's not asking for words, she's asking for silent evidence. She wants to know if her energy can expand without breaking yours. And that proof doesn't come from arguments, but from posture. A woman who tests you is offering an opportunity. She's asking if you can remain whole in the middle of her storm. Ironically, most men fail because they try to understand. But understanding in this context means losing. Because respect doesn't arise from logic, it arises from perceived strength. Neuropsychology shows that feminine tests are automatic limbic responses tied to survival and mate selection. Women don't test to wound, they test to measure emotional predictability. A man who reacts is unstable. A man who breathes and stays grounded activates safety within her. She may yell, doubt, or provoke, but if you stay whole, she relaxes. She doesn't want perfection, she wants a man who doesn't collapse. The biggest mistake is trying to correct her reactions. You're overreacting. You always do this. I just want to understand you. All of that communicates the opposite of what she needs to feel. She doesn't want you to calm her with words. She wants to feel you are the ground where she can fall apart. When you understand this, tests stop being traps and become mirrors. Each one reveals where your energy still wavers, where your ego still seeks approval. A woman doesn't lose respect because she tests. She loses respect when the test reveals you have no spine. What she seeks is to feel that she's before someone who has nothing to prove. Someone who embodies what he is, silently. The man who understands this doesn't try to win the game, and he transcends it. He realizes every test is an invitation to occupy his axis more fully. And when he does, she changes without knowing why. Her gaze softens, her body surrenders. Because she feels the masculine is back in command, not command over her, but command over himself. The silent presence that reignites respect. After polarity collapses, when admiration fades and tests multiply, most men try to win back respect through action. They send long messages, promise change, try to show they understand. But respect isn't earned with words, it's felt energetically. What reignites it isn't theatrical indifference, but a return to your center. Presence isn't empty silence, it's full silence. The kind that has weight, like the air before a storm. A woman feels when a man stops reacting because he matured, not because he gave up. There's a profound difference between stepping back out of fear and stepping back out of sovereignty. Silent presence begins the moment you stop trying to control her perception of you. Feminine respect returns when she realizes she can't manipulate your emotional energy, not because you're cold, but because you're whole. A centered man doesn't react to her chaos, he observes it. He understands that every emotion she expresses reveals something about the dynamic, not about his worth. While most men try to fix her confusion, the conscious man sustains his clarity, and her unconscious recognizes that as strength. Jung said, "The man who masters his own unconscious becomes a lighthouse in someone else's storm." That's the essence of silent presence. It's not manipulation, it's stability. And stability always attracts. When you're grounded, your posture changes. Your eyes communicate steadiness. Your voice becomes calm, anchored, unhurried. And the most fascinating part, you don't have to do anything. Her body simply responds. The psychology of desire shows that the feminine is drawn to signs of emotional stability. The absence of anxiety in a man soothes her nervous system. That's why respect returns. She begins to feel safe again, even if she can't explain why. But understand, this isn't a tactic. If there's hidden intention, her body will sense manipulation. True presence only exists through authenticity. You don't act it, you are it. When a man returns to his center, he realizes something vital. Respect doesn't depend on her gaze, but on inner coherence. When he respects himself, the field around him reorganizes. She can test, provoke, or doubt, but nothing shakes him. Because he finally understands her energy doesn't define who he is. And that's the moment respect is reborn. When she feels she no longer has the power to unbalance you, her feminine instinct relaxes. Tension becomes polarity again, not conflict. Your silence stops being distance and becomes magnetism. She starts to admire you again, not because you became someone else, but because you finally became whole. Joe Dispenza calls this heart coherence, the state where the heart, mind, and breath align in stability. That's what a woman feels when a man is centered. She doesn't feel anger, she feels peace. And that peace is irresistible. Because deep down, the feminine has always sought a space to rest. Silent presence is that space. No performance, just energy. No rush, just direction. From that point on, everything changes. Words become few. Gestures carry weight. A look communicates more than any speech. The man who embodies this presence no longer tries to be respected. He emanates respect. He's conquered the inner world, so the outer world naturally bows. Not out of fear, but recognition. When she looks at him again, something awakens within her. It's not nostalgia, it's reverence. She feels she's before a man who no longer seeks anything. And paradoxically, that's why everything comes to him.